The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, and it is time to introduce our panelists. First up, we've got the HMFIC at PX Arms. Matt Walker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Absolutely. Next up is a familiar voice to anyone who's listened to This Week in Guns for a while. He's the owner and chief instructor of Downrange Firearms Training. Matt DeVito, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. Great to be back.
Next up, host of the Reloading Podcast, Mike Iceland. What's up, buddy?
How's it going?
Doing well, man. Glad to have you all here. And before we kick this off, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. We've got Patriot Patch Company, as always, patriotpatch.co. Mike, you said you had a sticker there from the February Patch of the Month Club, right? Yep, that is the, what is that called? Opposites Attract. That's a beautiful one, 9mm and 45 auto. And then the Bullets Are Forever sticker as well.
There's a bonus patch.
Exactly, bonus. So great stuff, patriotpatch.co, and also Manticore Arms. Check them out. We always appreciate the companies that support the shows on the Firearms Radio Network. So go check them out, manticorearms.com. Lots of great products for ARs, AKs, Brens, Scorpions, Tavors, X95, and more and more and more. So go check them out. Coupon code is TWG10 to save 10% off your entire order. And guys, we've got a lot of news tonight, so I'm going to just jump right into it. Florida lawmakers reject assault weapons ban and approve armed teachers. So it just so turns out that after everything happened in Florida, and this is reported in the New York Post, which is questionable at best, but Florida lawmakers have shot down an amendment on Monday that would have banned semi-automatic weapons like the AR-15. They did, however, agree to raise the legal age for purchasing a firearm to 21 and approved legislation that would give teachers the right to carry guns in school. So some good news, some bad news, and it is really surprising, honestly, that the Florida lawmakers didn't just knee-jerk a bunch of ridiculous stuff and actually seem to be using at least a part of their brain.
Agreed. There is some good stuff in here, and there's some other stuff that I'm not crazy about, but for the most part, you know, I agree with the being able to allow the teachers that want to, at least, to be able to carry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
So for me, after I heard about the shooting, I actually texted a couple buddies of mine in Florida. Because I know Florida's the gunshine state. I grew up in Massachusetts, and in Mass, you have to be 21 to purchase a high capacity firearm. I live in New Hampshire now, and I'm way over 21. So it's one of those things where I guess I've kind of ignorant of age restrictions. So when I heard that the kid was 19, I texted my buddy. I'm like, oh man, illegal gun. He got the gun illegally. And he's like, no, he was of legal age. And I'm like, don't you have to be 21? And he's like, no, you can at 18. So for me growing up, like I purchased my first AR the day after I turned 21. The only reason why it wasn't the day I turned 21 is because I was probably blackout drunk somewhere. But it was, I don't want to say it's kind of a culture shock just because I'm used to the draconian gun laws in Massachusetts, even though I live in New Hampshire now, and I've lived across the country in Oklahoma. But I guess when you're kind of older, past that age, you really don't think about it. And at first I was like, I felt like I was more responsible at 21 than I was at 18. But then I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm a hunter. I hunt with an AR-15. It's a great rifle, an AR-10 too. They're great rifles to, harvest game with. And it sucks that now potentially, an 18-year-old kid can't get one of those guns to go out and hunt with or shoot with or anything. So at first I was like, oh man, like, it's not big of a deal. And then the more I started to think about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it kind of sucks if they change it to 21, even though, like I said, that's what I grew up with. That's the only thing that I know. But looking forward, I'm glad they actually kind of shot that down. So,
but they can still enlist when they're 18.
Correct.
And
and carry full arms.
Yeah. The one quote in here that stood out to me was from a senator, and of course a pop-up just came up. The senator, let's see, Oscar Branyan, obviously against this bill, says, "It bothers me to think, as a father of 2 young boys, to tell them to not be aggressive to your teachers." This is something you would think would you'd probably have to have this discussion whether they're armed or not.
Well, yeah. I mean, should any kids really be aggressive with their teachers at all at any point in time? And if you have to tell them that, have you failed as a parent?
Exactly. This is what's wrong with society.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Also told other black fathers around Florida that they have to include teachers when talking to their children about how to act around armed authority figures. Please don't make it dangerous for children who look like my children to go to school. Like, ridiculous. This guy,
take out the word armed and it's perfect. This is how you treat authority figures. Yeah. Armed or not doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. And here in Colorado, you can buy a rifle at 18, but a handgun at 21. So at least that's how it is today. You never know how the laws are going to flow overnight.
So here in Wisconsin, if you go to a licensed dealer, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun, 18 to buy a long gun, any long gun. However, private sales, you can buy a handgun at 18.
Yep. That's a federal thing. That's the way it is. And states can be more restrictive, like what we talked about earlier with the rifles being 21. But yeah, that's kind of a federal thing that I, as an FFL, can't sell you a gun because you're only 19, but you can buy it from some guy down the street as a private sale, perfectly fine. I think everything should be 18. Drop the sales of handguns down to 18, personally, for me. But that's
next story. The Guardian reports that NRA head breaks silence to attack gun control advocates. They hate individual freedom, and this is obviously Wayne LaPierre at CPAC. Speaking to the echo chamber, pretty much. He came out and they used the word vituperative, which I actually had to look up because I didn't even know what that meant. But it was an attack on gun control advocates, accusing them of exploiting the tragedy to push their agenda, which, honestly, the NRA has been exploiting pretty much everything as long as they've been around as well. So, what goes one way can also go the other. However, it's nice that he spoke out. Unfortunately, it's, like I said, in an echo chamber and not out in the normal mainstream media as he should be every single day as the head of the NRA. Thoughts on that, guys?
Just more typical behavior from Wayne. I really need to get the heck out of here, LaPierre. He's been doing this for 20 some years now. I think he really believes in Rahm Emanuel's there is no such thing as a bad crisis. Or don't let a crisis go to waste, whatever that saying was. And now he's chiding people for doing exactly what he does all the time.
Yeah. It was, go ahead.
I mean, I've kind of been one of the people that's, always stuck up for the NRA and go, I tell students, go join the NRA. They're the ones that fight for our rights, And just after all this, I don't even care. I honestly, if the range that I belong to, the range that I teach at, if I didn't need to be a NRA member to be a member of that range, I'd let my membership lapse. I'd let all my credentials lapse because the NRA doesn't represent me. So
yeah, and we've got a huge problem in the executive branch of the National Rifle Association, and I keep saying, let's get rid of them all. Let's get rid of them all. The board has the power to do that. And I recommend to the board, and I'm going to vote only for board members that stand beside that as well. Let's get rid of the executive branch and fill the board with the right people. But yeah, I mean, I'm fed up and I'm sick of it. And this is just, exactly what you would expect from LaPierre in the current executive branch of the National Rifle Association. One thing I noted that was kind of interesting on this, I did say that this was reported by theguardian.com. Down at the bottom, they've got a big fundraiser. While we have you, help us break the cycle of failure on gun violence. It's time for a radically different approach to media coverage of gun violence in the U.S. The Guardian is seeking contributions to fund Break the Cycle, our in-depth series to challenge the orthodoxy that gun control is simply too difficult and promote creative solutions. So they've raised almost $200,000 so far with this. So thought that was kind of interesting. Time to talk about our president. Gun Owners of America, opposition to Trump bump stock ban. And Trump proposes bonuses for teachers that get firearms training. The Firearms Policy Coalition calls the Trump bump stock ban lawless, and Trump's proposed gun regulations could lead to National Gun Registry. And then, as Matt DeVito mentioned before the show, Trump has now said, let's throw some stuff in place and we'll worry about due process afterwards. Trump, in my opinion, at this point, is a turncoat. I can't see it any other way. He promised the Second Amendment supporters, and that's what got him into office. And I think he's just decided now that he does not want a second term because, look, I've said it multiple times. The people on the left, they're not going to vote for him. If he banned every gun in the United States tomorrow, the left is not going to vote for him. But now the only people that did, that half, that right, the center right people and the far right people that did vote for him, he's just alienated all of us.
I mean, it's, one of those things where he's got so many people that hate him on the left, and to try to bow down, and you don't know what's running through his head, if he's trying to gain favor with them or make less people hate him, or whatever the fact of the matter is, he's just completely alienating himself now from both sides. It's my buddy said it perfectly earlier. He's like, that's why I didn't vote for him and I voted for a dead gorilla instead.
Long live Harambe.
Yeah, D's out for Harambe. Yep. It's scary because, and you'll hear people that are huge Trump supporters. I know a bunch of them, and they're like, "Oh, he's got to give a little to get a little," and this is just to pacify. And you have to think that in 8 years, there was no fear. Well, I should say there wasn't a fear, but in 8 years, Obama didn't pass anything close to what Trump is talking about passing. And it's that age-old saying, give up a little, was it dangerous freedom? I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. For just fear-mongering. That's it. It's something that's not going to go away, but people think that if you just chip away at it, then it's like, okay, so you start with the bump stocks, you give them that that little piece. What's next? The binary triggers, the collapsing stocks, the pistol grips. And then we're back down to that Clinton assault weapon ban from 94. And, now they're talking about complete bans on all semi-automatics. So, is that a featureless semi-automatic? Is it an AR-15? Is it a Ruger Mini 14? Where does it stop? So
I completely agree. And I mean, the Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, these organizations are out there working hard. They recognize the turning tide. And this is a big deal. When the president says, we'll put some stuff in place and worry about due process later, this is not something I'm a fan of. And look, we keep hearing this term, they're playing chess, not checkers. Well, we saw how horrible the NRA was at chess. And now if Trump is playing chess, the only thing I'm going to remember when it comes time to vote is let's get rid of due process. We'll put some stuff in place and worry about the due process later. Sorry, that doesn't work for me. I believe in the entire Bill of Rights, not just the second, not just the first. I believe in the entire thing. And if we just start skipping the entire reason for having it, I don't want anyone like that in the leadership of this great nation.
Agreed. I don't think anybody's under the assumption that Trump is an expert in firearms. I mean, he may be a 2A supporter, but I think he's getting a lot of his advice very poorly from the NRA with the bump stock stuff that happened recently. So I'm glad that Gun Owners of America is coming out strongly against that. Not defending Trump, though, because he definitely stuck his foot in his mouth with the whole giveaway to due process. That's unexcusable. But it does take... It is going to take everybody to stand up and tell, to tell everybody that this is wrong.
Well, it's, you said he's not an expert on firearms. He's not an expert on much of anything. you know?
That's true.
And it's like, you think about it, and again, I was super for not having a politician in the White House. You know, so let's try something different. Let's try somebody, you know, that can't be bought, that, you know, there's no real ties to politics, and it can't be swayed and all this other stuff. And you look at it, and the last time we had somebody like that was Reagan, and you look what he did as far as gun control goes, and now we're just, you know, history's repeating itself.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, he's not an expert at anything, but he is good at surrounding himself with people that are good. But I think right now, being surrounded with the NRA, with Wayne LaPierre and Chris Cox and all this advice and stuff that he's getting, it's just poor advice, is inexcusable. And like I said, that's partly, I believe, blame on the NRA, and the only way to do that is to change them from within, you know, write the board, stuff like that. But I do think, like I said, with the whole due process thing, he's kind of sticking his foot in his mouth, and partly probably because he's not a politician. So that is still one of the things that I like about him. I don't agree with that 100%, not even a little bit, but I'm hoping that he's going to kind of realize what he said when other people who are experts in that kind of come back and kind of let him know, well, this is not right, you know, and hopefully there will be a little bit, you know, there's going to be backpedaling, but hopefully he'll kind of realize, and maybe we can actually get some positive change out of something. I think right now everything is emotional because, you know, some crazy kids shot up a school. And so that's what everybody's acting on right now, is emotions.
But, you know, the thing is, if you look at everything else he said, that we may not have gasped that, you know, other people like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. And we're like, yeah, stand your ground. And he has. And, you know, when he's made fun of, you know, Kim Jong-un or all this other stuff, he's stood by all of his tweets and everything else. And, you know, you got to wonder if he's going to do the same exact thing here.
Yeah.
Even if he realizes he put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah. Like I said, it's unexcusable. That's not even close to the correct answer. But I'm hoping there will be some backtracking on it.
I do this thought exercise all the time, where when I look at something and I'm angry about it or whatever, I look at it and I think, okay, well, historically, I've liked the fact that Trump has kind of, you know, just bucked the status quo and kind of done his own thing and said things that you wouldn't expect a president to say, good, bad, right, or wrong. Sometimes I think that that's good. Like Matt DeVito just said, I think that that's important. And, you know, in having someone who can break the system. But when I said that I wanted to elect a president that might break the system, I didn't mean like the entire system. Like I didn't mean the Bill of Rights. I meant the system of politics, which he seems to be just, you know, falling right in line with. And if it is the NRA, Wayne LaPierre and Chris Cox giving him this bad information, giving him this bad advice, which it very well might be, because we've all seen his tweets talking about LaPierre and Chris Cox are patriots and they want to do the right thing. So it's very, very likely that is the scenario. But, you know, just once again, these are not people that represent me. They don't represent my interests. And, you know, I've just had it. So when I look at this, when I look at Trump saying, you know, we'll put stuff in place and worry about due process later, I try to look at it from that mindset. You know, am I just mad because it's something I really care about? But no, I mean, I think that it's way, way, way worse than anything else he's ever said, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's funny. I was just talking to John from the Gun Collective about it. And I said, you know, he said, we'll deal with mentally ill people when it comes that time, and we'll worry about due process later. So what defines a mentally ill person? You know, if I happen to like the FNFAL and wearing short shorts, and I decide I want to go out and feed my chickens with my FAL strapped across my back in some Rhodesian short shorts, and my neighbor thinks that makes me crazy, does that mean that Trump's coming to take my guns? Because what's the you know, the policy on what defines mentally ill?
Well, if you're doing that, is your neighbor actually wrong?
No.
Oh, love it. All right, guys. So a couple states are working on some constitutional carry bills out here in Colorado. Committee passes constitutional carry bill. The next needs to go to is the Senate subcommittee, the Senate Appropriations Committee, where it has to pass by majority vote before moving forward in the legislative process. This is SB 97, which says that Colorado residents would just be able to constitutionally carry, meaning they could conceal or open carry a firearm without a permit or any permitting process. Will this pass in Colorado? Highly, highly, highly unlikely. You know, we don't have a great governor here, so even if it passes all of our legislative stuff, getting there, very, very unlikely. But also, Oklahoma has introduced House Bill 2951, and it's an interesting version of constitutional carry, Amoland says. The bill adds self-defense to the list of activities that are exceptions to the general prohibition on carrying weapons that exist in Oklahoma law. It includes knives as well as guns. So basically, they're just trying to allow a version of constitutional carry as well. So good to see that these things are progressing, but you know, not a lot of hope, especially in today's climate. Any thoughts here, guys?
Well, I mean, we just got constitutional carry last year, I think, in New Hampshire. And again, it was one of those things where a lot of people pushed for it, but a lot of people were surprised as well, because we've got all the liberal moonbats that don't like to pay taxes from Massachusetts that come up and inhabit the border towns in New Hampshire. And I mean, you know, the state pretty much voted for Hillary. So when you look at the numbers that way, you go, wow, how the hell did constitutional carry pass in a state like that? I think it'll probably pass in Oklahoma, having lived there. Everybody there loves their guns. Again, Colorado, probably not so much. And it's kind of like, again, like I said, you know, living in Mass all my life, when everybody in Massachusetts who now can't own AR-15s or AKs and stuff like that, but they're like, oh, they're talking about passing suppressors in Massachusetts. And I'm like, what are you going to put them on? The guns that you can't own? You know, it's like, you know, oh, they're going to get rid of the assault weapons ban in Massachusetts, but they're going to not be able to buy the guns that are assault. It's like, you know, it's one of those things where, again, there's already been a scary precedent set in Colorado with the magazine ban, you know, the limits on mags. And like I said before, same thing with banning the bump stocks. You give them that one little piece, and now they're like, okay, it's a chink in the armor, and they exploit it. So, you know, Oklahoma's got really good gun laws, so I could see it definitely passing there. I mean, hell, it might as well. The entire time I spent there, I saw more people carrying guns like cowboys than in a John Wayne movie. It's also because it's the land that time forgot. But, you know, again, Oklahoma, yeah. Colorado, probably not. Hopefully it goes through. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, Colorado is one of those places. We got Boulder, Fort Collins, and Denver, which are, you know, geographically small areas, but they do set that left-leaning precedent in Colorado. I mean, Colorado's mostly Republican state. Everyone loves their guns here, except for people in Denver, Boulder, and Fort Collins. I got pulled over. I get pulled over in Colorado Springs all the time. Never a problem having my firearm. I got pulled over in Denver last weekend. Huge thing. Like, pulled us out of the car, disarmed me, ran my gun. My gun was in the glove box. He was asking me for my concealed carry permit. I was like, yes, I have one. No, I'm not required to have one in my glove box, nor am I required to show it to you. But, you know, I did, just because I was like, okay, sure, you can trample my rights because you don't understand them. That's fine, because I just want to finish this financial transaction and move on. But that was a complete just a-hole, and you know, totally out of line with what I've seen historically in Colorado. So those places do scare me. And you know, it's a lot of California people coming into Colorado now that we've got legalized marijuana and things like that. So definitely not the place that I grew up in. And hopefully we've still got enough people in the Senate and Congress to get the stuff through for us. California schools. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if you asked that cop if you were being detained.
No, but I absolutely should have, because I honestly thought that I was being detained. It was the dumbest traffic stop I've ever been a part of. And honestly, yeah, it was a little bit scary because he was such a jerk. And the worst part of the entire thing was, after it was all over and done with, he returned my firearm to my glove box, unloaded, of course, but he kept one of my rounds. So I carried I carried the magazine full and one in the chamber as well. He kept the one that was in the chamber. Yeah. So I'm like, dude, you owe me like $1.50. Oh, Matt, I did want to ask, DeVito, I did want to ask out there, because of constitutional carry, because you have passed it there where you live now, I think a lot of firearms instructors nationwide think once constitutional carry passes, that basically their businesses go away. Is that just kind of a misnomer, or have you seen like a decrease, or is it just steady as it goes?
It's like honestly the trends. I mean, I guess I really haven't seen that much of a difference. Um, and it's funny. Somebody posted recently on like one of the Massachusetts Facebook gun groups that I'm in, and they were like, "Oh, if they allow carry in schools, I'm a teacher. If they allow carry in schools, then I guess I should go take a firearms training course." And somebody replied to that with, "Well, do you carry a gun regularly?" And the guy was like, "Yeah." He goes, "So why do you take a firearms training course if you're carrying a gun in a school, but not if you're carrying the gun regularly? You should still be just as responsible." So it's like there are some people out there that get it, and there's just some people that don't. I will say that I think that around here, where guns aren't really part of the culture as they are like down south, there's a lot more people that want to get experience. Like I just literally 24 hours ago got an email from a guy, "Hey, new gun owner, um, looking to shoot XYZ guns. I don't know what I want for self-defense, for a first gun, for personal carry, for protection in the home. Can we go to the range and you bring like 50 different guns and let me try them and figure out what's what, and you give me, opinions." So it's really tough to say. I mean, I don't think constitutional carry has really, um, been a derogatory thing for firearms instruction. If anything, I think it's kind of eliminated the process of, oh, let me go and get a license and do this and do that. Because I knew a lot of people that they simply in New Hampshire, it's easy. Literally, it took me 3 days to get my handgun license. I went down to the chief of police. I said, "Hey, it cost me $10. Here's $10 in an application," and 3 days later, my license showed up. So I think for some people it's an inconvenience that, hey, I may have to go to work early or leave work early to, drop the application off. So they don't want to do it because of that. But now that they can do it kind of, quote unquote, freely, I think a lot more people are kind of taking advantage of it, going and buying guns and then wanting to learn how to use them. I definitely, I was busy as hell last year when the year that it passed. And, I mean, I haven't, because there's still snow on the ground here, so I haven't started training yet this year.
Yeah.
But I haven't. It hasn't been a detriment to my business at all. So
Cool. That's really good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
California school shooting plot thwarted by security guard, police say over at foxnews.com. And basically what happened was there was a disgruntled, in quotes, student got, and this is one of those things where I'm like, it could have been really, really bad. It could have been just a kid blowing off some steam, but we have to take these things seriously. So no matter what, a security guard overheard a conversation with a student that basically said he was going to shoot up the school within 3 weeks. He went over, asked the student what he said. The kid reiterated the stupid thing that he had just said, and the guy took him to the office. They've now arrested the kid. And I fully support what the security guard did. I'm glad that he spoke up, whether the kid was just blowing off steam, being an idiot or not. Like if someone had actually listened when the piece of junk in Florida did what he did, maybe if someone had listened and reported him. Oh wait, they did a lot. But in this case, so far so good. Had a bunch of firearms, and I noticed in the article it said 90 high capacity magazines, which I was like, those are rookie numbers. We need to pump those up. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I think it's good because, like you said, with the recent stuff down in Florida, if he hadn't said something, then something would have happened. This guy would have been the next guy on probation / early retirement because he failed to do his job. So that was his job. He did that. The part I don't like about this story is that the rifles and ammunition found, I think, were his brother's, who then also got arrested for one of his ARs not being registered because it's California. So that's the part of the story I don't agree with.
Interesting. Yeah.
One, thank you, Sean, for not mentioning the guy's name in Florida. Two, again, it's the whole see something, say something thing. And society has, in the past 8 years, 10 years, however long you want to go back, we've become so afraid of offending people that parents don't hit their kids anymore. Parents don't discipline their kids anymore. I mean, again, like, I owned a gun shop, and we were kid friendly. We were dog friendly. I prefer to have dogs in there instead of kids. It is what it is. Um, but you a gun shop with glass display cases and guns and ammo everywhere, and some parents would just let their kids run around wild. And you're like, hey, can you just kind of get control of your kid? Are you trying to say I don't have control of my child? Well, he's over there putting bullets in his mouth, so no, you don't. Yeah, and it's like, and they still don't reprimand the kid. And it's kind of funny, just completely circumstantial. I sold a rifle to a guy last week, and he was down in Virginia, so I shipped it his FFL, and he and I got to talking afterwards, and he's like, hey, how are things up there? I'm like, oh, everything's fine. He's like, yeah. He's like, we had an incident last week after the Parkland shooting where there's this guy down here, and he's a big time dealer, and his son got on the school bus and said after the Parkland shooting, oh man, my dad has so many guns and I can get my hands on so many guns that I would make that kid look like an amateur. And apparently somebody recorded it, brought it to school resource officer. They ran it up straight to the police, who I guess called the FBI, because this guy, like I said, was, I guess, a pretty big dealer, importer, exporter, that whole deal. And FBI called the guy's house and like, hey, this is your son. Oh, my son would never say that. Okay, well, does he have access to guns? Nope, everything's locked up. Okay, well, the next day he got a knock on his door, and come to find out the kid had, I think he was like a 16-year-old kid, had an AR in his bedroom. The dad had guns all around the house. And it's like, maybe we need to kind of take a step back and start parenting again and start being responsible adults, because, even though words may hurt you, losing somebody hurts even more. And it's one of those things where we kind of have to take responsibility for our own actions, and as adults speak up and say something. And even though it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, or they're going to go home crying, or, they may get their ass spanked. I think we as adults need to start doing a better job of that, instead of just saying, oh, he's just joking. He's not going to do anything. Because in 2018, I mean, we got a pretty scary start to the year so far, and, something's got to change. And I think we can all agree it's not the guns. The guns aren't doing it. And you got to wonder why these kids at home are able. I mean, I know my parents were up my ass when I was high school age.
Mhm.
I couldn't think of doing something without my parents finding out about it. And that's before you could even put stuff on the internet. That's before Instagram and Facebook and all that other stuff existed, where you could be like, update my Facebook status. Hey, ditching school today. Who wants to hang out?
Yeah.
Like, that was when people were still, chirping on Nextels and stuff like that. And, it's like, back then parents did something about it. Why don't they now? What changed in society where parents don't want to get involved with their kids' lives? So
Agreed.
I'm all for people taking initiative and doing that stuff. And I've even heard of parents being like, well, I don't want to say something in case I'm wrong, or in case I'm overreacting. Well, if somebody said something about that, well, not that people did say stuff about the kid in Florida, but, had other people, in other circumstances. Like there was a woman right after that reported her grandson, because her grandson had some scheme, to go shoot up a school.
A granddaughter. There was a lady turned in her granddaughter recently. We talked about it in last week's show.
Yeah. I mean, had she not done that, who knows what could have happened, So, I mean, I really think people need to start parenting. They need to go back to, if take the cell phone away, take the Xbox away, if your kid's going to hold your breath until they turn purple in the face and pass out, cool, let them do it. It's like, start punishing kids, start parenting. It's, I guess it's easy for me to say, but it's something you should do. So.
Yeah. Could not agree more. 100%. Anyone else have anything to add here?
Yeah, my 17-year-old twin boys, they don't get to touch them. Hunter safety graduates, they get firearms refresher training every year with 4-H. They've been to the bullpup shoot. They've fired full auto with that a few years ago, and I know that they can handle firearms safely, but they're locked up, and they understand that if they were ever to touch them, there's only one consequence that's going to happen to that. And
yeah, and they're good kids too. But I mean, we as parents, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to keep firearms out of the hands of people who they shouldn't be in their hands. And whether that's a kid, whether it's an intruder, a burglar, a robber, like we have these responsibilities not only as parents but as gun owners, and we need to take that seriously. But even further along those lines, the bystander effect is a real thing. Like, people don't want to get involved because they don't want to get drawn into it, and we got to get over that. The bystander effect is for a society of cowards, and that's not what we are.
Yep, agree 1,000%. It's like, and again, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to get sued if I do this or do that. Well, you know what? You risking the potential of a small claims court BS lawsuit could save 17 lives. So,
indeed. From Q13 Fox, father-daughter pair charged after assault rifle, 66,000 rounds of ammo found in a California home. So basically, this guy had gotten, in California, they've got this thing called the APPS list, which is basically a list of people who are firearms owners that may have become restricted individuals. And then they can go and take care of all this different stuff. So it's obviously registration and more. So if something does change, like this guy got a domestic violence charge, and when they went to raid his house, they found a lot of firearms. They mention 13 AR-15 rifles, 11, and I'm saying this with all due sarcasm, ghost guns with no serial number, meaning they can't be traced, 2 fully automatic machine guns, and several rounds of tracer ammunition, and 66,000 rounds of ammunition total. So lots of laws being broken here. But again, they make it sound like, and who knows, maybe this is a bad guy, maybe not a good guy at all. Obviously, laws being broken here, but they make it sound way worse than it is. I mean, 66,000 rounds of ammunition, it's a lot, but it's not the most I've ever heard of.
And several rounds of tracer ammo.
Yeah, several rounds of tracer ammo. And the only reason they mention that is because the Las Vegas piece of human garbage used some tracer stuff.
Well, this guy was already a prohibited person. So it says he was arrested in 2001 for felony convictions of possessing a machine gun and counterfeiting money. So that's already 2 huge no-nos. Felony should be a prohibited person. So while this may not, 13 AR-15s and 11 ghost guns aren't a huge arsenal comparatively to some of the people that we may know, this guy being a prohibited person, that does kind of make it a different circumstance, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be perfectly honest, like, let's get this guy off the streets. I'm fine with that. He is breaking the laws, and let's get rid of him. I'm okay with it. The thing that I found interesting was the apps system, the de facto registration, or legitimate and literal registration. What do you guys think about a system like that? Good, bad, right, wrong?
Lived under it for like 28 years. It's stupid. And the reason why it's stupid is there's no way to track it. So in Massachusetts has the MERC system, which is the Massachusetts Instant Record Check system. And after you buy a firearm, after your background check is cleared, on a NICS check on a 4473, you then have to submit all of your information to the state. It's make, model, serial number, caliber, barrel length, capacity of the gun. It's all of your information, and it's the store's information as the buyer and the purchaser and the seller. And all that gets stored at the Criminal History Systems Record Bureau. So as a legal law-abiding citizen, all of your information is kept in a file right next to all of the pedophiles and rapists and murderers in Massachusetts, because that's what you're viewed as. And the information never goes away because the system is flawed. So what I mean by that is, for example, I was going through an interview process with a police department one time, and they were like, so tell us how many guns you own. And I'm like, oh, this is a kind of trick question. um, like 75, and they're like, now you can't lie. I'm like 78, and they're like, no, keep guessing. I'm like 90, and they're like, no, let's try one more, and I'm like, no way, it's 100. So like 95, and they slap down this manila folder in front of me. They're like 373 guns, and I'm like, no way, absolutely not even close. And it's every gun I've ever owned, because even though once I buy the gun and then I sell it to somebody else, I have to do a registration of it. The gun never comes off my name. So because of that, it was, because I was 26 or 7 at the time, it was every gun that I'd purchased since I turned 18. So 10 years of registrations, even though like the very first 1022 that I bought at 18 years old, I sold at 19, which has probably been sold a million times over since then. The gun is still registered to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a flawed system, because at the end of the day, they run the serial number on the gun and it goes back to the first person that has it. And they have to go down the line and figure out, if it's stolen or whatnot. They go down the line and have to figure out where the hell the gun is now. So it's like, it's kind of a feel good soccer mom type deal, Yeah, it doesn't work. It's completely a flawed system. And, it's funny, like I'll have, just for, a joke, sometimes I'll have a buddy run, oh yeah, see how many guns I still have registered in Massachusetts, and they'll pull it up. They'll be like, there's like 700 guns here. The pages keep going and going and going.
Gosh.
And yeah, it's like, again, guns that, I'm like, well, that gun's not even in Massachusetts. It's like, that gun's probably in Alaska somewhere, because I sold it to a guy 12 years ago in Alaska. So
yeah, that's pretty nuts, man. Is there any, and this is to all the panelists, is there any version of this law that ever could work? Yeah, I know.
Tough. I mean, it's obvious, possibly, I guess, because the app system did catch this guy, but he's got 13 AR-15s, 11 ghost guns, quote unquote, and 2 fully automatic machine guns, according to this article. So how long did it take to work? What I'm kind of curious as to what triggered it anyways, if he was able to get,
September, he had a domestic violence restraining order issued against him, and the raid was carried out in February of 2018.
So if he never does anything, they never catch him. So
yeah. Well, and that's every law, right? I mean,
well, he was arrested in, he was charged in 2001 with a felony, so he shouldn't have been able to have this in September anyways. That's kind of what I'm kind of curious as to why.
Yeah, good point.
Why it took this long, regardless, or how he got these in the first place, because of the registration.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to a couple of sad stories. Virginia police officer shot and killed on her first patrol. Literally her first day on the job, and not only her first day on the job, literally her first call for service. Her name was Ashley Gwendon. She was 28. It was just a domestic call. 2 other officers were wounded, and the suspect's wife was killed. So, just really sad. You just think about, she was out there doing it. And I just thought this was a really profoundly sad story.
Yeah, there's not really much else to say for that.
Yeah, agreed. North Carolina man shot dead on Facebook Live, suspect in custody. This comes to us from MSN.com. And I just thought that this was kind of a weird one. This is literally just blocks from police headquarters. This is in North Carolina. A guy was known for spending a lot of his time trying to improve his neighborhood, and basically was walking with his phone on a selfie stick. Sorry, I couldn't remember what the heck they were called. His phone on a selfie stick, walking down the street, told someone who had approached him, said, "You're on live." And then that person fired 4 gunshots. Didn't really try to hide themselves. Didn't really care. Just blocks from a police station, just shooting a person down in broad daylight. And do you think we're going to see more of this kind of as Facebook Live and just all this stuff proliferates even more?
Social media is the devil.
It is.
It really is. It's like it has the potential to be so good, but like anything else, all it takes is one bad apple to do it. I mean, nobody had ever heard of anything like that again, 10 years ago, and it's again, it's a great way, you connect with people from across the world, and you can do this, you can take online classes and all this other stuff that that you couldn't do without the social media apps. But and it's there's parallels in everything, just like the gun laws or the shootings. All it takes is one person that they have evil inside them. You can't regulate evil, like I'm notorious for being banned on Facebook every day. I'm not an evil person. But sometimes people on Facebook don't like what I have to say. So, I get banned as a person that's of, sane and sound mind. I'm like, okay, cool, it's a ban. I'm not going to go, and when my account gets activated again, to go on Facebook Live and shoot somebody up because of it,
Right.
So I mean, that's the thing, is there's so much good that can come from the apps. But all it takes is one person to do something. And I mean, look, in the past 4 or 5 years, there's been gang rapes, there's been beatings, the knockout game, you look at all the stuff that wouldn't have come about if it wasn't cool to put it on the internet.
Yeah. What's that thing where people, the people, are like pulling guns? I can't even remember the name of it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it either. But again, it's stupid, And there was that guy, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, that live streamed himself on Facebook shooting that like poor old homeless guy.
Yeah, sorry, autoplay video is the devil.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, once one person does it and they don't have anything to live for, like, well, I'll make myself famous,
Yeah.
So, and again, I mean, look at people eating Tide Pods. If it wasn't for YouTube, kids wouldn't eat Tide Pods.
Absolutely. And for the record, they're disgusting.
Well, I think this guy's been going around and kind of highlighting. So he was trying to clean up his neighborhood, and it says in the article that he was highlighting a lot of like illicit activities like drug dealing and stuff. So it sounds like possibly he may have upset a lot of people doing that stuff. So it may have been, payback and coming after him and targeting him specifically for that, not necessarily just because it was on Facebook Live. But I mean, it's kind of sad. I hope they catch the dirtbag that did it and put him away.
Completely agree. Next story: House Democrats introduced bill prohibiting sale of semi-automatic weapons, and this is a tough one, called the Cicilline, or introduced by, I should say, by Representative Cicilline from Rhode Island. And it is insanity. The bill prohibits the sale, transfer, production, and importation of semi-automatic rifles and pistols that can hold a detachable magazine, as well as semi-automatic rifles with a magazine that can hold more than 10 rounds. Additionally, the legislation bans the sale, transfer, production, and importation of semi-automatic shotguns with features such as a pistol grip or detachable stock, and ammunition feeding devices that can hold more than 10 rounds. It names 205 specific firearms that are prohibited, including AK-47, AR-15. This is the assault weapons ban of 2018.
And when they were, yeah, I was going to say, when they realize that those 200 guns don't solve any of their problems, they're going to go after the next 200.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. This is bad. This is the worst one that I've seen introduced so far.
Now, I do have to say, and again, whether it was hearsay or not, it was just somebody saying on Facebook, somebody said that when that was announced, that Trump did come out and say, that'll never happen. I'll never sign that. That'll never pass Congress. Whether or not it's true or not, again, that was a day or two ago. With everything he said today, who knows? It's probably BS, but
you never know. But yeah, I mean, this is so overreaching. Any politician that ever wants to be reelected, at least as far as Libertarian, Republican, Constitutional Party, whatever, if they vote anywhere near this, they'll never get reelected. But yeah, this is a tough one. Mike, any thoughts on this one?
From what I read on looking at the bill, it can easily be stretched to even firearms such as like the Remington, what is it, the Woodman or Woodmaster, the 760 and the 7600 series.
Mhm.
My autos have the 4-round magazine because it's detachable. It basically is going to ban every handgun on the face of the planet.
Exactly. Well, anything that, a semi-automatic, a detachable magazine, handguns.
Yeah. So any sort of handgun for self-defense, forget about it. Or I'll be back to revolvers.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'll rock an airway, whatever I need to do. But yeah.
I look like Josie Wales.
Oh man,
revolvers.
just ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't believe politicians, especially when Trump came out and said it'll never see the light of day. There was a couple other people that say about that. I don't believe that one bit. With the current situation and with how many people are fired up, it's going to see something, and it's going to be. I pray it doesn't get passed. I hope it doesn't get passed. I don't think it has a legitimate shot to get passed. But the problem is, if it makes it out of committee, then we're in a huge fur ball with it. So it can't even make it out of committee.
The thing you have to think of too is if that gets passed, who's coming to collect the guns?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the first person that said, I'm going to go door to door and I'm going to, clean up the streets and start collecting guns. And again, there will be cops that will do it. There'll be cops that, they were picked on in high school and that's the reason why they became cops. And, they'll volunteer to do it. And when this was talked about the last time we talked about confiscation type stuff, which years ago, and the only reason why I know it was years ago is because when it was talked about, I was hunting in Mississippi. And one of the guys that I was hunting with was just an old time Southern dude. And he said, I'm best friends with the chief of police in this town. If he wants to come and knock on my door and tell me to turn my guns in, I'll fire the first shot. And, unfortunately, there will be a revolution, whether people want to believe so or not. I think there's a lot of, luckily, thanks to Instagram, we have a lot of 3% or sheepdogs out there that will hold the line for us. I try to say it with a straight face.
I couldn't tell if you were serious or not.
There will be people that say, okay, this is too much, and then again, at that time, you got to choose a side because and people are like, oh, the National Guard, the this, the that. It's like, okay, but all those people took an oath to protect against enemies, foreign and domestic. And, when you ask somebody to start firing on their countrymen, you're talking about a whole different battle. So,
yeah. And that's, that brings me, PJ Media, man over there by the name of John Hawkins writes an article, says what liberals don't understand, a serious attempt at gun confiscation could lead to civil war. And, you're exactly right. There is going to be profound repercussions. Like if you try to go door to door in a lot of places and, a lot of good people are going to die. And that's honestly what it is. But we did see confiscation during Katrina. And we didn't see a big uprising. We saw people basically, turning over their guns and things like that. That may work there, but is it going to work everywhere? No.
But that was a different circumstance because that was under duress. So, you've got people that they've lost everything. So at that point in time, what's a gun? They kind of had no other option because they were also told to evacuate their homes. So, it's. I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, there's no hurricanes, there's no floods or anything like that going on right now. So,
true.
To say to somebody, yep, give up your home and your guns, we're from the government, we're going to save you. At that point in time, that's the only hope people had, so.
Yeah. Very, very good point.
And the other thing with that is most of the guns that were confiscated during that time were out of empty houses.
Yeah.
All right. Very, very well put, gentlemen. Basically, the last thing I want to talk about is a lot of businesses are either planning on or abandoning the NRA, you know, taking away their discounts because honestly, until yesterday, I honestly didn't even know I got discounts for being an NRA member.
Same.
So I'm like, oh man, I could have been using. Nope, never mind. Don't really care about any of these companies. The one that I think is a little bit interesting, we saw Chubb remove their insurance policies and insurance backing for some stuff, but now we've seen Locked In Affinity remove as well. And the way that affects a lot of people, or the thing that is unknown, I guess, at this point for a lot of people, Locked In Affinity is the backer for NRA Carry Guard, that travesty. And what a lot of people don't know is Locked In Affinity is also the company that provides the policies for instructors and things like that, the liability policies for instructors. So does them pulling out and away from the NRA affect all of that? And I think it's a little bit of an unknown right now.
I think it definitely will affect it.
Yeah, and again, it is a little bit of an unknown. But if they are no longer insuring these liability policies for instructors, like Matt, you mentioned that your range specifically requires NRA credentials and things like that, and a lot of them here do as well, and they also do require these liability policies. That Locked In is pretty much the only game in town as far as something that is reasonably priced and provides the coverage that most places need.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and again, I have insurance through the NRA as an instructor just because it's cheap, it's easy, you know. They'll insure you for like up to $1 million. It's like, I don't know, $170 a month or something like that, which is cheap,
Yeah.
you know, in comparison to what could happen if somebody got hurt or whatever. So, but, you know, again, it's been one of those things where I'm like, oh man, maybe I should register, you know, maybe not register, maybe I should use the NRA's insurance for my guns, because they say, oh yeah, you know, we'll insure your guns up to this amount, but then they want make, model, serial number,
Right.
caliber of everything. And now you start thinking, okay, well, my guns aren't registered in my home state, but the NRA wants me to register them, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, as this whole trickle down effect happens, you kind of start to wonder, like, okay, well, what exactly is the NRA's main goal here?
And
I mean,
those,
like I said,
those are also backed by Locked In Affinity, that the
right,
personal property policy.
right. You know, I mean, it's I don't support the NRA. I've got a lot of friends that are staunch advocates for the NRA. You know, I love Adam Kraut to death. I'll vote for him simply because the NRA needs a change. But if somebody came to my door tomorrow, or hang on, let me go through my email and look at the 19 messages I've gotten in the past 24 hours about how my rights are under attack and I need to donate, you know, no, sorry, not going to happen. You know, like I said, if I didn't need the NRA to teach and to be a member at my club, I would take all my stuff and my Chinese made flashlights that have NRA on them and stuff like that and send them back to Chris Cox. You know, I wouldn't support them. I'd rather support a local, you know, Gun Owners of New Hampshire, you know, Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts, people that actually do fight for my rights, as opposed to, you know, giving money to the NRA so they can, you know, make Kalia Noir look cool on TV and give them a 6-figure salary.
And then I guess I do want to talk about one more thing. Dick's Sporting Goods has basically announced again that they're not going to sell any modern sporting rifles. They did this in 2012, directly after Sandy Hook. They never allowed them again, but apparently they wanted to, what is that called? Virtue signal again, that they were going to do it. Which, you know, and apparently they've got the Field and Stream stores, which did sell modern sporting rifles and things like that. But, you know, they took it as a political platform to just basically put out what they think or how they think gun control should work in the United States. And I will say, cheaper than dirt today, it's been reported all over the place that they have suspended all firearm sales. And I saw earlier that they had PMAG selling for $60 again. So
are you kidding me?
No. How is cheaper than dirt still in business? We need to I am not a guy who's like boycott everyone who doesn't agree with you, but man, cheaper than dirt, they need to go down. And Dick's Sporting Goods too. I'm not shopping there. I would urge you to make decisions for yourself as well.
It's free advertising for them. That's all it is.
Yeah, I guess. Any thoughts on this, Mike, before we go?
I haven't spent a dime at Dick's since they did it the first time. So
good.
Same here. Or cheaper than dirt.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah.
I'm a dime at either company.
The issue is we're our own worst enemy, though, as gun owners, because let's be serious. If Dick's Sporting Goods runs an ad tomorrow for 22, that's 2 cents a round. All the people are like, oh, screw Dick's Sporting Goods. They're going to run out and they're going to go get it because it's cheap 22.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. And I've always been of the mindset that, hey, yeah, you know what? Dick's Sporting Goods may have 9mm on sale. That's $1 a box cheaper than the local mom and pop shop. But I'd rather go and support the local mom and pop shop. So that's always been my opinion. I used to work at Dick's Sporting Goods back in the day before they were Dick's Sporting Goods, when they were Galleons, when they still sold handguns and stuff like that. And it's a place for new gun owners to feel safe.
Yeah.
Because, there's less of, and again, we're all gun owners. We've all owned guns for X amount of years. Some of us have had FFLs or whatever. It's an alpha male thing. You don't want to be the guy or the girl that walks into the small mom and pop gun shop not knowing what the hell you're talking about, because you're probably going to get the big burly guy behind the counter that, is going to quote unquote intimidate you. So people go where they feel they may have better customer service, because it's a quote unquote department store, and that they base their premises on customer service. So what? We know it's true. But if you tell the new gun owner, hey, you can go to a Dick's Sporting Goods, or you can go to Al's Rod and Reel gun shop up the street, they can be like, well, Dick's Sporting Goods sounds like less intimidating and cleaner, so I'm going to go there. And again, we know, because we know that the people they put behind the counter are $8.50 an hour employees that don't know their ass from their elbow. However, the new gun owner goes there and thinks that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So,
Yep.
I've honestly, I've gone into stores like that, and even some of the, like a Walmart or an Academy Sports, and I just screw with people. Like,
I did the same thing.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like SHOT Show bingo. How much misinformation can I get in the next 7 minutes from this guy? Like, what things can they hit on? They can talk about, knockdown power and 45 being the biggest and the best. And it's like, it's almost one of those things where it's just kind of funny. And I've been in situations where I've heard them saying something to somebody, and they'll be like, I'll be right back. I'm going to go in the back room, and I'll grab somebody and be like, hey, listen, that guy's, he's full of it. He has no idea what he's talking about.
That's my best place to hand out business cards.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. It's sad, but it's true.
I had a guy at Walmart tell me when the 9mm was impossible to find a few years ago, he told me that I could put 38 special in my 9mm. Works fine. I was like, okay, cool.
That's awesome. All right. Excellent discussion, guys. I really appreciate it. It is time to wrap this thing up. Don't forget, visit patriotpatch.co, join the Patch of the Month Club, and just get a surprising package in the mail every single month that you'll probably, I guarantee that you'll love it. And also Manticore Arms, MANTICORE arms.com, and coupon code is TWG10 there as well. Matt DeVito, where can people keep up with everything you're doing at Downrange Firearms Training?
You can find me at DRF Training, on the Twitter, the Instagrams, the chat snappers, Facebook, and also I'm big into the hunting world. Matt DeVito Hunts on Facebook and Instagram. That's it. Just do the damn thing.
That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Matt Walker, where can people find you?
Mainly nowadays, I'm just on Facebook and Instagram at TX Arms.
Very cool, man. Thanks again for being here. Totally appreciate it. It was great.
Thanks for the invite.
Mike Iceland, Reloading Podcast. Where can they find you? Where can they find that?
Spend most of my time with that. Facebook, Instagram, Reloading Podcast on both. We have both a page and a group for the podcast on Facebook. So
very cool. What was your last episode about?
We're actually going through, we're kind of doing a 2-part series. We're starting over, starting from the beginning, teaching new reloaders, but at the same time, we're going to be throwing in different twists and experience stuff. Like next week, we're going to talk about brass prep and brass, that type of thing. So we're going to talk about your basic stuff, but then we're going to get into like neck turning and different things like that too at the same time. So
very cool, man. Awesome to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt you. And thanks to everyone who listens to the show, watches the show, etc. It would not happen every week if it wasn't for our great producer, Kenny Ortega. This Week in Guns is produced by said Kenny Ortega and is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. And we will see you next week.